Greetings, my name is Keith Jackson, Commissioner of the Kentucky Department of Veterans Affairs. This year, we're commemorating Memorial Day without crowds and speeches, but with a special video message to and for all Kentuckians, from veterans and military leaders from across the Commonwealth. You will hear from Kentucky Adjutant General Hal Lamberton, Major General John R. Evans, Commander of Fort Knox, Colonel John R. Kurtz, Commander of Bluegrass Army Depot, Air Force Colonel Kathleen Buss, C-17 pilot and Air Force ROTC Commander at the University of Kentucky, and finally, Andy Beshear, our Governor. Hope you will find their messages as heartfelt, patriotic, and inspiring as I do. May God continue to bless us and keep us all. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Colonel Katie Buss, the Air Force ROTC Commander at the University of Kentucky. And for most of my career, I flew C-17s, which primarily was a cargo airplane, but sometimes we'd get recut to do a medical evacuation mission outside of Afghanistan or Iraq. And every time I had the honor of doing one of these missions, I'd always go down and talk to the patients and hear their story about what they've gone through. And it was always so humbling, because here they had missing a limb or they had shrapnel scars all over their body, but rather than focus on what they didn't have or what they lost or what they had to give up, they focused on what they did have. They were so excited to go see their family, they were so happy to return home, and they were proud of the service that they had given to their nation. And I remember thinking on the way down, I had a salad in my box lunch, and I was complaining that I got ranch instead of balsamic vinaigrette like I asked for on my salad. So I had a little problem and a little sacrifice that I gave, and I probably made it a bigger deal than I had to. While these soldiers downstairs had a big problem and a big issue, but they minimize it and they focus on what's important. So this Memorial Day, we're all sacrificing. We're all giving up some of the rights and freedoms that we're used to having. But this Memorial Day, let's take this a time to not be entitled and think about what we don't have or what we should have just because we're American citizens. But rather, let's be humbled by what others have done and learn from them. And let's be appreciative for everything that we have. I, for one, am appreciative of my family and my husband, Jake, who couldn't be here today. I'm appreciative that we're all healthy, and we're so happy and appreciative of the freedom that we have because others have sacrificed. So on behalf of ROTC at the University of Kentucky and on behalf of my entire family, we want to say thank you to the veterans past and present and their families for all they have sacrificed. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Welcome to Kentucky's historic Camp Nelson. During the Civil War, some 10,000 enslaved African Americans risked their lives escaping to this site to join the Union Army and risk their lives again to help secure their freedom. What we know today as Memorial Day has its roots in the multiple impromptu ceremonies that were held around the nation in the years following the Civil War. Americans from both North and South gathered to honor those in uniform who gave their lives in the fight for our country. In the 155 years since the end of the Civil War, the American people have not failed in gathering together to recognize and honor all those who selflessly chose to serve, fight, and die for our country's ideals and freedoms. This year, Memorial Day will be unlike any we Americans have experienced. There will be no traditional ceremonies nor inspirational speeches to large crowds gathered at our national cemeteries. Because of COVID-19 precautions, we must honor our nation's fallen with small groups of family and friends. But these smaller memorials do not take away from the importance of the sacrifices made by those who have heeded the call to serve. On this Memorial Day, we can best honor our nation's fallen war heroes by demonstrating the same strength and determination as those enslaved African Americans who, against all odds, found their way here to Camp Nelson. We must show that same commitment and keep fighting for what's right, to keep fighting to protect and save our loved ones and our neighbors from a pandemic which threatens us all. The President of the United States has proclaimed Monday, May 25th, at 3 o'clock in the afternoon as a Memorial Day national moment of remembrance. Whoever you are, wherever you are, please join me in pausing for 60 seconds as an act of national unity and demonstrating our gratitude and respect for those who died for the freedoms we enjoy every day as Americans and the values which make this nation great.
Nearly 250 years ago, American patriots fought for their independence against what must have seemed like insurmountable odds. Much was lost, including the lives of many who fought bravely against imperialism. But through the tragedy of their loss, a new nation emerged, one that values freedom and liberty. Over the last 2 centuries, brave Americans have continued to stand against oppression, bound together by a love of country and the willingness to defend it. Many have sacrificed, but today we honor the lives, legacy, and service of the men and women of our armed forces who have paid the ultimate price, the last true measure of devotion. Each wore a uniform bearing the flag of this great nation and were committed to a cause greater than themselves. Much like the early patriots, they stood united in defense of this nation, its people, and its values. Their legacy is one of valor, service, and patriotism. There are American military cemeteries around the world, much like the one behind me, lined with white marble headstones bearing the name of an American patriot. And still, many more are buried in private cemeteries across these United States. Their individual stories are unique, but together they represent the strength of unity, and they remind all of us that freedom is not free. Each generation of soldier has adapted to new enemies and fought on new battlegrounds. Today, we face an invisible adversary at home as the COVID-19 virus continues to spread. It is incumbent on each of us as Americans to follow the lead of those before us. We must persevere in the face of adversity, choosing the harder rights over the easier wrongs to ensure the safety of all Americans. By gathering here in this virtual environment, we show that no matter the fight, our nation stands ready for any challenge that faces us. We are forever indebted to our fallen. Let us honor them this Memorial Day and every day by standing ready to preserve and defend the United States of America.
Specialist Jerry Daves, Specialist Martin Denson, Specialist Alejandro Enrique Lozano. These are 3 soldiers, and they're the same unit as I as we deployed for Operation Just Cause. But we did so to take out the dictator Manuel Noriega. In doing so, we made a combat parachute jump into Panama, and through the subsequent operations, each one of these men, each one of these soldiers were killed. For each of us, I'd offer prior to that, simply being in the military was a huge adventure for the types of activities and training that we could engage with. But when this occurred, suddenly the military became much more than just an adventurous lifestyle, but it was a lifestyle that had a very serious impact. And that's when it really changed my perspective as well. These days, we're here to honor and respect those folks who've made the ultimate sacrifice into the service of their country, whether it's towards any of the past wars or any of the combative operations or simply in other military-related events. These are the people who have effectively given us the country that we have today, who've enabled us to create the strongest military in the history of the world, who've enabled us as a country, as the citizens of our country, to be the benefactors of their efforts. So we want to recognize each of these men and women who've made such a sacrifice this Memorial Day. As we do so, I ask that each of you recall not just the service member, but also that service member's family. As without the support of our families, we could not do what we do today. The military service, as many of you are aware of, we have very few folks who wear the uniform today. So quite simply, those who are already in uniform, I generally believe, deserve our honor and respect. And those folks who've gone before us and laid out the ultimate sacrifice, we're here today to remember them, and I ask that each of you do so accordingly. Thank you.
On this Memorial Day, we honor and remember those who have sacrificed for our freedom and also those that have supported them. Those who died in combat and those who mourn them. Those who are wounded and those who care for and support them. those who return forever changed, and all of those who stand by them. After more than a century and a half of Americans honoring those who died fighting for our freedom, this Memorial Day 2020 is unique. This Memorial Day, we will be remembering our veterans who have passed, not by gathering by the hundreds at veterans cemeteries, not by bringing large groups of family and friends to place flowers on graves, not by crowding together to hear speeches, but by staying apart to protect each other and the nation that those veterans died to preserve. Over the past few months, we've learned what it means to make sacrifices to save others. Not our very lives, as these veterans did, but many of the things that make our lives full. This year on Memorial Day, there will be grave flags at every headstone at our state veterans cemeteries, as well as our national cemeteries. There will be no service or ceremonies, but staff will be present to help families locate headstones. We see the success of our veterans' sacrifices around us every day. And although we can't honor them during a large ceremony this year, it is important that we still honor them in our homes. On this Memorial Day, take strength and determination and a renewed commitment from their example and keep fighting to save all our loved ones from the pandemic we are facing. I remind you to join Americans everywhere for the Memorial Day National Moment of Remembrance, legislated by Congress and proclaimed by the President on Monday, May 25th at 3 o'clock Eastern Time. Wherever you are, please pause for 1 minute in this act of national unity to demonstrate your gratitude and respect for those who have died for our freedom. God bless these lost veterans. God bless their families and their communities. God bless every single member of the Commonwealth of Kentucky. Thank you.